festivals held throughout Japan. Some are subdued, many are lively, but the Kishiwada Danjiri is said to be the most dangerous. The festival centers around the pulling of wooden floats called danjiri through the streets of Kishiwada, a small town in southern Osaka. The main event takes place over a weekend in mid-September, and there's a similar but smaller event a few weeks later in October. Floats are common in many Japanese festivals. However, unlike in other traditional festivals, these floats are pulled at a run, and corners are taken with power and speed. The corner turns are important enough to have their own name, Yari Mawashi. Executing these fast Yari Mawashi turns requires a large team and careful timing. The team is divided into subgroups, each with their own defined role. Some roles are filled by individuals or small teams, while others are filled by much larger numbers. The Sennen Dan, or the youth team, use long ropes to pull the danjiri forward, giving it pace and momentum. The rope teams are organized by age, with the youngest at the front and the more senior members closer to the danjiri. The Maiteko, or the foreman, work large wooden levers in the front of the danjiri and help initiate a turn. The Ushiro Teko, or the rearmen, work the large levers in the rear of the danjiri and are the primary means of steering it through the narrow streets lined with spectators and electrical poles. The lever movements are signaled with fan waves to ensure that the team makes a coordinated effort. If the team is not in sync, the 4-ton danjiri could topple into the crowd or smash into someone's house. Riding on top are the daikugata, or the carpenters, who relay steering directions to the Ushiro Teko, whose view of the course ahead is blocked by the massive wooden float in front of them. The position of daikugata is a highly privileged and dangerous one. They ride on top, with thousands of spectators' eyes on them as they juggle their captain's duties with performing the hikikonori airplane dance. Daikugata's dance moves are not just for show. While making Yari Mawashi turns, daikugata jump from side to side to shift the weight of the danjiri and help maintain its balance. Let's take a look at the prelude to a turn here. We see the very end of the Sennen Dan pulling the ropes as the Maiteko levers are put into position approaching a corner. Above the levers we see 3 men, local leaders from the neighborhood, and the person in charge of pulling the danjiri. Behind them we catch a glimpse of the narimono, who are in charge of the drums, flute, and gong. They are usually selected from the younger groups, understandably so as they are responsible for playing non-stop for hours on end. On top we see the daikugata. On this float there are 4 men in the group, but one is hidden behind the flags in the danjiri. Below them are the Ushiro Teko. This is around 4 in the afternoon, so they likely have been manning the levers since the danjiri left its garage at 6 a.m. All danjiri take to the streets at the same time in the morning. Next year we'll have to get up a bit earlier. Back to the turn. The daikugata are ready and await a whistle from the forward group leader already around the corner. The signal comes and the daikugata jumps to the outside of the turn. As they round the corner, the entire neighborhood follows behind them at a run. Men, women, children, all ages, wearing traditional uniforms or t-shirts. They all make the turn. Each danjiri has its own team, broken into different groups, comprised of people from all ages and representing one of Kishiwada's 30-plus neighborhoods. These neighborhood teams have their own unique uniforms, with Japanese characters and distinct color schemes. In addition to those actively involved in navigating the Danjiri through the streets, members of each neighborhood run along with the floats. Some are in positions alongside to provide hydration in the ever-present fall heat, but the majority run behind, making for an impressive train once the Danjiri has passed. As mentioned earlier, many members of the community are involved in the planning, logistics, and performance of the festival. They have different roles based on age, and in some ways the festival seems designed to include people from as wide an age group as possible. Again, we see the men riding in front, the local leaders and the person in charge of towing. Those not involved in the movement of the Danjiri can often be spotted on or around it and identified by their sashes. As the Danjiri train passes, we see older men in official uniforms walking, followed by a number of women fanning those in front. The Danjiri wind their way through the narrow streets of Kishiwada for hours. The teams pulling the Danjiri shout, "Sorya," in other words to show their spirit, encourage their team, and leave no doubt they are ready to pull their weight. They do not run the whole time, of course. They also walk as they approach an intersection or wait for Danjiri cross traffic to clear. And there are some occasional breaks. All the while, the taiko drums beat one of 4 rhythmic cadences that indicates the current state of the Danjiri and its team. The kizami rhythm is the fastest rhythm and used when running all out in a straight line. There's a slightly slower but still powerful drum beat, which is used when at a trot or performing yari mawashi turns. A slower rhythm is used for moving at a walking pace, and even at rest the drum still beats, though at its slowest rhythm, perhaps as a reminder that there will be time to run again. The energy from the high-speed Danjiri spreads throughout the crowd, and the atmosphere is loose and raucous, while also somehow being family-friendly. With so much activity going on, the Danjiri themselves can be somewhat overlooked, but they are where the festival gets its name, and they have their own story to tell. The Danjiri weigh 4 tons and showcase the carvings of carpenters from each of the neighborhoods. The carvings are unfinished to leave the wood grain exposed. They are of people, horses, sacred animals, and intricate patterns depicting war stories and myths from kabuki, kodan, or ningyo joruri. These days, it is up to the artists on which scenes from which stories they choose to carve on the Danjiri. However, when the festival began in the Edo period, permission was required from the local clan before carving could begin. At that time, Danjiri were considered a lavish extravagance at a time when the common people were forced to be frugal and austere. Carvings on the Danjiri were restricted from anything that could be seen as political criticism or depictions of the Oda or Toyotomi families. So in the early days, most of the scenes were drawn from Chinese legends. The carvings are somewhat unique in that other floats and other festivals are more often decorated with curtains, embroidery, or metal fittings. The reason for the carvings is that the area around Kishiwada was home to the Kishigami clan, a family of prolific shrine carvers, and it is most likely their influence that led to carving being the preferred form of float decoration at the Kishiwada Danjiri. As the day comes to a close, there is a momentary lull, and the Danjiri are covered with lanterns to parade the floats at a somewhat more relaxed pace. During the evening, the torch is passed to younger members of the teams as they take on more prominent roles. There are no sprints or sharp turns, but it still takes skill and coordination to manage the massive a It's interesting how moving Danjiri through the streets does so much to bring the community together. The days of planning and practice beforehand, culminating in the intense energy of the marathon festival. I can imagine the physical exertion of the participants and the prolonged, energized state of the Danjiri train do a lot to bring the community together and develop relationships. After the festival, there will be neighborhood gatherings to celebrate their hard work, and then preparation for the next year begins.